Father and Dickie are watching the plumber fix a very important pipe, a water pipe. While he fixes it, all the water in Dickie's house is shut off. No water will come into the house until the pipe's fixed. Being without water makes a big difference to Dickie and his family. Dickie's mother can't wash clothes without water. And in the kitchen, Dickie's family needs water too. All these dirty dishes and pans. Dickie's mother can't wash them without water. Dickie's father needs water too. His hands are dirty. But he can't wash them without water. And clean hands help us to keep healthy. And now Dickie is thirsty. He wants a drink of water. But there isn't any water. No one knows when the pipe will be fixed. Dickie and Mother and Father will just have to wait. Brownie will have to wait too. You don't think about how important water is until you don't have it. Dickie's mother thinks she misses it most of all. She can't boil the potatoes or the eggs without water. Yes, she needs water for cooking, too. And look at Mother's plant. She can't water it. And plants need water to grow. Today, Dickie has begun to learn how important water is, especially at home. But there are many uses for water that Dickie has not thought of. Water in the toilet and the radiator helps us. Water in the toilet carries away wastes from our bodies and helps keep us healthy. Hot water goes through the radiator. Some radiators use hot water to do their work of giving off heat. Water is so important to homes everywhere that communities must make sure that there is enough water for the people who live in them. Some towns pump their water from wells that go deep into the ground. Some towns get their water from rivers. To make sure that there will be enough for the people to use, dams may be built across the river to collect great amounts of water. Places like this for storing water are called reservoirs. Some towns are near lakes and take water from the lakes for the people to use. But much of the water from wells, rivers, and lakes is not pure. It has to be made pure to protect the health of the people. Cities and towns purify water and make it good to drink or use for cooking. Then it is pumped through pipes to homes and schools and stores and every place where people need it. But water is important in other ways, too. Listen, what's that? Look, there it is. It's the fire engine. The fire engine reminds Dickie that water is important to firemen, too. Dickie's father explains how the firemen use water to help put out fires which destroy buildings and are dangerous to people. Great streams of water from the fire hoses cool things that are burning and put out the fire. Water is used in other ways, too. It turns into steam when very hot, and steam can be used to make locomotives go. Dickie thinks water is useful, but he wants to play. He can't. His wading pool is empty. We use water for play and fun. In summer, The public swimming pool in the park is filled with water, and Dickie and other children go swimming there. A swimming pool is lots of fun, but you can't swim without water. Water helps you have fun. Dickie's father enjoys fun with water, too. He often goes to a lake near their town to fish. Many fish which live in the lake are good to eat, and Dickie's father likes to catch them. The lake helps him have fun. A lake is a big body of water. Dickie's father reminds Dickie of other ways we use big bodies of water. Just as Dickie's toy boat floats in his wading pool, so do real boats float in the river that flows by the town in which Dickie lives. Boats carry people and things up and down the river. The river is like a highway for boats, and a river is a big body of flowing water. Ships and boats all over the world use water of lakes and seas and oceans as their highway for carrying people and things. Water helps people travel for pleasure or business. Big bodies of water are important to transportation. Big bodies of water are also important to people who work on fishing boats. They catch fish for a living. The fishermen on this boat pull in fish that have been caught in their nets. Waters of lakes and seas and rivers give us many kinds of food. Foods from crops that farmers raise need water too. Rain can bring the water that helps the crops grow. But rain and water can be harmful also. Water from rain can wash away good soil, and too much water can mean a flood. Floods sometimes destroy homes and other buildings and are dangerous. A flood is water out of control. Yes, water can be harmful. But we have seen how helpful it can be to us, too. Talking about water so much certainly makes you thirsty. But there won't be any water to drink until the water pipe is fixed. Here's the plumber now, and he's leaving. He must be through with his work. The pipe is fixed. Hurry, Dickie. Yes, Dickie's family has water again now. Water for drinking, water for cooking, water for brownie, water for the plant, water for washing clothes, water for washing hands, and water for dishes. Yes, even water to fill Dickie's wading pool. Yes, there is water again. Dickie and his family missed it, but now it's back, and Dickie is glad, for he knows how helpful and important water can be to everyone.
Hello, everybody. I'm Skip Alzheimer of AV Geeks. Welcome to our lunchtime screening event. Let me use technology and introduce you to a longtime friend of mine, Kier-la Janisse. Kayla, everybody can see you, so you can wave.
Hello.
Kayla's joining us from, what'd you say, an island?
Yes,
in
an
British
island
Columbia.
in the woods in the wilds of Canada.
And you said that the power might go out at any second.
Yes.
All right.
That's the price we pay for this level of amazing isolation.
Yes. So you were just telling me a story about the screening that I did with you in Montreal.
Yeah. And
about the film that you picked, Dead is Dead.
Which will sort of give people a preface as to the types of films they're going to see on today's program, because I do tend to go for the sort of grim and depressing types of films. But yeah, I wanted you to come up and do an AV Geeks presentation of classroom films at this fundraiser that I was putting on for Pop Montreal, which is like a music festival in Montreal that has a film component. And so we were deciding on what films that you should bring, and you had told me about this film called Dead is Dead. And so I was like, oh, I want to see that movie, so bring that movie. And you were just like, are you sure that you want to play that movie? It's pretty grim. And I was just like, how bad can it be? It was like made for a school, you know? And so anyway, we did this event, and there was like families there and children running around and stuff like this. And then this film comes on, and like you gave like a warning at the beginning of it, but I just was like, it came on and I was like, oh my God, I'm so fired. I'm going to get fired from my job for this, because it was just like dead kids in dumpsters, you know, and just, oh, it was so brutal. Just like real footage of like dead children who had OD'd on drugs and like in the garbage, like their bodies thrown on a highway.
We're nervously laughing about this. We're not making light of the fact that there were kids that were dead in dumpsters.
No, it's like I'm laughing because I was just like, wow, my judgment is so bad, you know? And then so I remember on Monday at the office just thinking like, I'm just going to get fired for that, you know, because that just played before all these families and children and stuff. And so my bosses were like, hey, great screening on the weekend or whatever. And I was like, what? I was like, did you guys see that movie, Dead is Dead? And they were like, oh, no, we were at the bar.
Yes.
So like none of my employers saw the movie. So, and I find that even when people complain about stuff, it's like, if you weren't there to see it, it doesn't seem as bad to you, you know? So it's like, so even if people complained, it didn't affect me in the end. So yeah, that was a surprise.
And that was probably one of the largest attended shows I've ever done. And it was great because I showed a film strip, and half the people that read the film strip refused to read it in English.
Yes.
That was so great. It made me very happy. And I talked about how poor my French was, my high school French. So I don't know if I endeared them, the audience, or what. They were just like, you stupid American. I think they loved it,
and I think they loved being able to read things in French, like read the film strip in French. So to be defiant in that way.
So why don't you give us a little brief introduction to who Kier-la Janisse is?
Okay.
People that are watching this are seeing to your right a list of all the different things. You have so many hats that you wear.
Yeah, I know. I can't seem to pick one thing. But yeah, so I have been a film writer and programmer since the late 90s. So I started a fanzine, and then that morphed into a film festival. I put on an horror film festival because horror films tended to be my specialty for a long time. Mm-hmm. So in addition to programming, which I also later worked for the Alamo Drafthouse, I think that's how I met you, Skip.
That is correct.
But then in addition to that, concurrently with programming, I was writing books about horror. So I would write essays and liner notes and things, but then I started writing books. I wrote a book about Luciano Rossi, Italian bit actor, and I wrote a book called House of Psychotic Women, which is probably the one people most know of everything I've done. And I started a school called the Miskatonic Institute of Horror Studies, which puts on classes in horror history, theory, and a little bit of production. And that has branches in London, New York, and LA. So there's different co-directors in each city and different classes in each city for that. I work for Severin Films, which some of you may know. We put out sort of horror and exploitation films, and I work on a lot of the bonus features. There's a team of us who do it, but I'll produce and edit bonus features for them as part of my normal job, which is a really great job. And trying to think of what else I do. So I have a publishing company, small press company called Spectacular Optical, where I publish books by other people, predominantly anthology projects, where I'll curate a topic and then have various writers write for that. So I have one that I put out on Christmas horror, and there's one that was actually curated by Sam Deegan, all about the films of Jean Rollin, and we have one coming up on the films of Robert Downey Sr. So, yeah, so various things, but usually all film related and all kind of niche film related, I would say.
Okay. So let's use that as a pivot point for you to talk about the first film that you want to show. And I'll let you pick which one.
Okay. I think I'm trying to maybe I'll start with All My Tomorrows.
Oh boy. Do we want to set it up a little bit, or do you want to just let people?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the one thing I'll say is that All My Tomorrows is a film that, as part of my Miskatonic Institute, one of the classes I do myself, I don't do many of them, but one of them I do myself is about horror or horrific scenarios in classroom safety films and industrial films and things like that. And so All My Tomorrows is kind of one of the films that I love showing in that class. And I have traumatized people with it as far as Australia and Scotland. And it's made by a guy named Ron Floth, who he made it in 1979, and it is using a style that he uses for several of his films, where he does everything in slow motion, and so there's kind of dissonant sound or dissonant audio visuals where you're hearing all the sound playing in normal time, but the visuals are actually moving in slow motion, and it's kind of an amazing effect that he uses a lot. And it's an anti-drug film, but it's like so 70s, and it's just, I love everything about it. And I've seen it now so many times. There are like lines that I can just, I can just quote so many things from this film. So why don't we start with that one?
All right. So here is All My Tomorrows. And this, just as a reminder, these are amazing films, yet they are all kind of downers. So here we go.
Attention all visitors. Visiting hours will be over in 5 minutes. Number 2S, Beaver 217, Beaver 217. Obie Porter, Obie Porter. Dr. Fisher.
I wish I could tell you why it all happened. How, sure. But why? That's what would be important to know. Me? I wasn't so different from other girls. I liked a good time. Who doesn't? Sometimes I was restless, bored, out of sorts. Felt sorry for myself. I had this kind of dumb job where I couldn't make enough to be out on my own, so I still had to live with my folks, with Mom and Dad always telling me what I could and couldn't do.
This is the way it's going to be. I don't want to hear another word about it.
I'm telling you this for your own good.
Mom was having sort of these nervous spells, and I don't know.
Good job there. You want a beer?
She was finding fault with me half the time. Made me sort of nervous, too. Sometimes I'd sneak some of her tranquilizers. You know, kind of help you ride things out. Dad always seemed to have a lot on his mind. Sort of remote, but sometimes annoyed, especially at me.
Is that all you're having for breakfast?
Mm-hmm. Chris was in that real fresh stage. A real pain.
Stop it! No!
Mom, of course, always thought he was perfect.
I'll have one coffee bagel.
Everything was all sort of blah. Just one stupid day after another. It sounds silly now, but I kind of thought life was passing me by.
You got anything planned for tonight?
Not after I get off work.
6 months and 3 days ago, just 10 days before Christmas, Wayne stopped by and asked me to go to a party at Fred and Mary Ellen's place.
I guess I can come by and pick you up at 8:30, right?
Okay, sure.
Good idea.
Yeah.
I always felt kind of excited when I was with Wayne. I never knew kind of what he'd do next.
I'm not so crazy about that boy.
Parties with Wayne were fun. Someone always had some grass, and there was always plenty of beer.
Anybody I know?
Sometimes wine. Nothing drastic, you know, just something different from the real drag parties Mom and Dad wanted me to go to. After going out with Wayne, I wouldn't feel so restless for a while. I mean, I'd sort of feel like I was where the action was.
I need some action on this hot Atlanta night.
By the time we got to Fred and Mary Ellen's place, the party was in full swing.
The night the blue coats came, and how they laid old Cipher down, and the bullets fell like rain.
Everybody was friendly and feeling real good. We had some drinks. When you're having a good time, the drinks slip down easy.
Never had any of this, babe? You did this so well. It's my specialty.
Here you go.
Now watch very carefully.
Don't spill any.
Exactly how to
Be
do it.
careful now. Here, keep this.
Well, anything we lose will be right on the table here. Now watch. You don't want to lose any of this good stuff.
Hawaiian?
Right. No, it's not Hawaiian. What are you talking about, Hawaiian? Now you look at like that.
Hot on night, all right. Hot on night, okay. Hot on night, all right.
There you go.
Suck it good.
Who brought this at you? I'm gonna be breaking down.
Okay.
I was feeling kind of, you know, free. Not worrying about a thing.
I don't know what to do, man.
Hey, where'd you get all those reds?
Whoa. One's plenty.
Some of the kids were popping reds. I'd never done that, but I always heard that if you wanted a real high, that was the way to go. I thought it would be fun to try. I mean, why not? It sounded exciting. And I was always gung-ho for anything exciting. Just a few few little old pills. Down 'em with wine and away we fly.
Either that or the cheese sticks. Gorge down here.
For a while I felt real spacey. Really sort of super.
You know, they're almost done.
After a while I began to feel strange. Dopey. Really sort of out of it.
Wait, Peggy, you all right?
Oh, thanks.
How many of those pills she had? Come on, I'm gonna take you into the bedroom, okay?
Wayne kind of shook me. I got dopey. Couldn't keep my eyes open. I lay down on the bed, and they forgot about me for a while. Finally, Wayne tried to rouse me.
Peggy, you all right? She's not moving. Peggy? Oh my God, she stopped breathing.
What do you mean?
Somebody.
What do you mean? What's wrong with her? She's...
Look, I don't know what to do.
Can she hear you?
No,
Peggy?
she's not moving at all.
Peggy, can you hear me?
You know what to do?
I don't know what to do.
Come on, get out of the way. You don't even know what's the matter with her. God, I don't think she's breathing. Call somebody.
Someone tried to give me mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
You know what you're doing? Yeah, I know what I'm doing.
The ambulance people came. Some of the kids split.
We got Mike. She's not breathing, Rob. Let's get her on the floor.
Wayne was scared to death, but he stayed.
What do you got, Mike? I don't know. She's not breathing right now, Carl. Get the bag up. Get going. Smoke too. Come on, let's go, let's go. Try a hyperventilator, Rob. Yeah, a little bit faster. She's been a while without any oxygen.
Hey, what's good?
Looks like an OD, Skip.
You know what she took?
We gotta get some OD. No, I don't know yet. We just got here. That's low right now, Carl.
Okay, Ben, you want to see if you can find out what she might have
Still
taken?
got no spontaneous respiration.
Does anybody know what her name is?
Let us know when you find out. No, we don't have the name yet.
We're getting some on.
Anybody know what her name is out there?
Yeah, her name's Peggy Watson.
How old is she?
She's 18.
You know where she lives at?
Yes, sir. She
Okay,
lives
Rob, hyperventilator, then when you're set, we'll go ahead and
Do you
intubate
have
her.
any idea what she took?
Ready?
I saw some red pills or something.
Red pills? Do you have any of them around still? If somebody could please find one of those.
Okay, looks
We
good.
got the pills
Looks
here,
good.
Carl.
Let's get the bag.
Take a look at it, Skip. What does it say there on the bottom?
Yeah, take a look at that and see.
Secobarbital, huh? Yeah, pretty potent stuff.
Yeah, she's taking about
Okay, give me a step. I wouldn't doubt it. Okay, syringe. How much do you have to drink?
about 4 drinks to what they say.
They rushed me to the hospital.
Kid, you look pretty good.
Sirens wailing in the night.
Dr. Ma'am, Dr. Mark Sam.
What do you got?
Looks like an OD, Donna.
Nothing spontaneous on this respiration. Put two good over here.
Yeah. 1,
Let's
2,
get her moved over.
3.
Go.
Any idea specifically what she's taking?
Well, alcohol and looks like barbiturates too.
Let's get this suction set up. I think she might have aspirated some.
How long ago was the ingestion?
About a half an hour ago, best we can figure.
Okay.
Let's do it.
At a party.
You all too.
Suck your chest out here, okay? All right, good.
What
Sounds a little better.
gases?
Pressure wasn't doing too good on the way in. A little low.
Okay.
Someone give me a blood pressure cuff.
She ever vomit while she was out there? Did you know of?
None that we saw. There was no problem with it, really. He's starting to sound a little wet.
Okay. Let's see if you can't get her going here with ventilation.
How old is she? 16?
18, I believe it is.
18.
How about her pupils? Have been reactive all along?
Non-reactive.
Okay.
Can you hand me a strip, please?
Gonna look good. There you go.
Thank you.
How's her EKG? Is that better? I
think she might have asked too bad. Let's put 40 KCl.
My parents arrived at the hospital. They hovered and waited while the doctors worked over me. Oh, Mother. Dad. Forgive me. I was crazy. I didn't mean to do anything wrong. I'll be all right. I'll never do anything like this again. I've learned my lesson. I'll be all right. I will, won't I? Mother! Help me! No one can help me. Get well, I mean. The days go by. The weeks. The months. And I'm helpless. They feed me with a tube up my nose. They catheterize me so I can urinate. They bathe me, brush my hair, and I lie here with a hopelessly damaged brain. No good to myself, no good to anyone else. It isn't fair. I'm not a bad person. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I only wanted to have a little fun, a few drinks, and a few crazy pills. And now this. Mother comes every day. She won't give up hope. She prays by my bedside. Mother, why did I never know how much you loved me? Dad's face has grown accusing. What have you done to us, he seems to be asking me. You ruined your life. Dragged Mother and me to the brink of despair. Plunged us neck deep in debt. What have you done?
You think they get cold? You were such a dear little girl. So loving, so affectionate. What happened along the way?
Sometimes Chris comes. He doesn't want to look at me, but he can't help staring. Oh, Chris, don't hate me so. I know everything's miserable for you at home now. Can you ever forgive me, Chris?
Why don't you die?
Wayne comes now and then. He feels so guilty. Did he ever care for me?
Peggy, listen. You gotta know this. The drug scene, you know? I've knocked it off, Peggy. Totally. You want to hear something crazy? I'm into nature foods and jogging.
Wayne, do you remember that once I was pretty? They say I've been here 6 months and 3 days. And you know what? Today's my birthday. I'm 19. Happy birthday, Peggy. And there's Mom with the birthday cake. She remembers how much I always loved a birthday cake.
Happy birthday, dear Peggy. Happy birthday to you.
Mother, it's all such a rotten joke. Do I go on like this forever? Not dead. Not alive. Oh, Mother, why did this have to happen to me? I never meant to do any harm. Really, I didn't. What did I ever do to deserve such a punishment?
Okay. So Kayla, we bummed some people out.
I mean, it's a bummer, but it also has because it's from a certain time period. It also has a lot of funny moments now too. So I feel like it's not a complete downer to start on because it does have Wayne, character of Wayne, who I think is kind of good for a laugh.
Oh, he's good. Yeah, the mustache and the unibrow at the same time. It's a lot. It's a lot of facial hair. So, I mean, I would say part of this, the downer part of this, is the fact that it's all in slow motion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that, you know, obviously in this movie, you could look at it like he's using a lysergic effect deliberately to accentuate the fact that it's about an altered state through drugs. But the thing is, he actually uses that effect in other movies that are like totally different things.
Yeah, I have that in the film The Day I Died, which is about a kid that drinks and drives and, of course, dies.
Yeah.
And you said there were some other ones?
He also uses it in another movie that I have not seen, but I have read about it, that he uses it in this other movie called Hitchhiking, The Road to Rape.
Oh, boy.
Which you could imagine. You could just imagine that. Like, oh, great.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, boy.
And I guess rape scenes in slow motion are things that are probably stylistically, you know, in films generally. But yeah, it's interesting that it was not used just for this film because it's a drug film. It's a style that he has used through a bunch of his films.
And his wife works on these productions as well, right?
It's actually not his wife, it's his mother.
Are you serious?
Yes. Louise Floth is his mother.
No idea. That's crazy. Okay. There you go.
So his dad was a guy named Richard Floth. He was a graphic designer in the 30s. He had come over from Germany and he moved to the States and started doing like posters, graphic posters and stuff. And when his dad met Louise Floth, who was a children's story author, and then they got married and they started doing children's books together. So she would write them and he would illustrate them. And then when Ronald Floth started making educational films, Louise would write and edit a lot of them.
It makes sense. So I mean, there is a fairy tale, cautionary tale aspect to this.
Right, but Hitchhiking the Road to Rape is also written by his mother.
Oof.
So, yeah, but he started a company called Gordon Kerckhoff Productions that made these films as like an independent producer and then would, I guess, sell them, or perhaps, I don't know if it was like a pitching process where he would get, as with a lot of these things, when you have independent producers, I don't know if they just sort of get hired by a company who's like, we want a drug film and we'll hire you to make it, or whether he is going around pitching certain projects.
Because it's got a Centron copyright, and 3 of the films that I have are distributed by Centron, which had the sales team, I guess. So
3 of the films you have, what do you mean?
Well, so I have The Day I Died, and then there's a VD film.
3 of his films.
Yeah, there's a VD film that he did that's actually very light and funny. The rest of them, not so much. All right, so let's talk about what's the second one that you want to expose to us.
Why don't we go with Silent Snow, Secret Snow?
Okay, excellent. And so this was, I've heard different stories saying that this was actually on a Night Gallery. This was an episode of Night Gallery?
It's a different, so same director, Gene Kearney, who made this short film in 1966. It was originally commissioned for CBS, so it was not even originally financed as an educational film, although that's how it came to be used. But so it was made for CBS, but then Gene Kearney also worked on Night Gallery, and he remade the story as an episode of Night Gallery. Completely different crew, cast, everything. The kid who's in the Night Gallery version is a kid named Radimus Para, who was later the kid. He was like the child version of David Carradine on Kung Fu.
Oh, interesting.
But so Gene Kearney was just really interested in this story. It's like a 1934 short story by Conrad Aiken, and so he remade it again. So this production, this short film, is a totally like independent thing that's shot in his hometown. And but then obviously when he started working for Night Gallery and he had more of a budget, he completely redid it with like an Orson Welles narration and stuff.
Oh, interesting.
But I think IMDb confuses them a lot. So I think like people are often not sure which version is being talked about, but they are totally separate versions.
Yeah, IMDb is absolutely horrible when it comes to educational film attributions.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so let's watch.
Yeah, so we should watch it, and then I have more to say about it after.
Excellent. All right, so let's watch Silent Snow, Secret Snow.
Just why it should have happened, or why it should have happened, Ghibli have said. Nor perhaps could it even have occurred to him to ask. The thing was, above all, a secret. Something to be preciously concealed. And to that very fact it owed an enormous part of its deliciousness.
Deirdre, perhaps you could tell us what the equator is.
The equator line that goes around the middle of the Earth.
The Earth is wearing a belt, or a sash, or someone drew a line around it?
No, not that. I mean, well...
Did you forget the word imaginary?
Yes.
It was as if, in some delightful way, his secret gave him a fortress, a wall behind which he could retreat in heavenly seclusion.
Moving up to the Arctic Circle, we again enter a zone of perpetual snow.
All he needed to do was to think of that morning, the first one, and then of all the others. Suddenly, for no reason, he had thought of the postman. He remembered the postman. Perhaps there was nothing so odd in that. After all, he heard the postman almost every morning of his life. His heavy boots could be heard clumping round the corner at the bottom of the little hill street. And then, progressively nearer, progressively louder, the double knock at each door, the crossings and recrossings of the street, until finally the clumsy steps came stumbling across to the very door, and the tremendous knock came which shook the house itself.
These constitute the vast wheat-growing areas in North America and Siberia.
But on that particular morning, the first morning, he had for some reason waited for the postman. But when at last the steps were heard, they had already come round the corner, a little up the hill to the first house. And even so, they were curiously different. And he had understood the situation at once. Nothing could have been simpler. There had been snow in the night, such as all season he had been hoping for. And it was this which had rendered the postman's first steps inaudible, and the later ones faint. And even now it must be snowing, the white ragged lines drifting and sifting, whispering and hushing, seething, getting deeper and deeper, silenter and silenter. Queer, the effect this extraordinary surprise had upon him. All the following morning, he had kept with him a sense as of snow falling about him, a secret screen of new snow between himself and the world. If he had not dreamed such a thing, and how could he have dreamed it while awake, how else could one explain it? He could not now remember whether it was on the first or the second morning, or was it even the third, that his mother had drawn attention to some oddness in his manner.
Paul, dear? Paul, you just don't seem to be listening.
What the devil is it, Paul?
Paul? Now, does anyone know the difference between the North Pole and the magnetic pole?
Perhaps it hadn't been even the second or third morning, or even the fourth or fifth. How could he be sure? How could he be sure just when the delicious progress had become clear? Just when it had really begun? All he knew was that at some point or another, perhaps the second day, perhaps the sixth, he had noticed that the presence of the snow was a little more insistent, the sound of it clearer, and conversely, the sound of the postman's steps more indistinct. Not only could he not hear the steps come round the corner, he could not even hear them at the first house. It was above the first house that he heard them. And then, a few days later, above the second, and a few days later, above the third. Gradually, the snow was becoming heavier. The sound of it seething louder. The footsteps more and more muffled. When he found each morning on going to the window that the roofs and the streets were as bare as ever, it made no difference. This was, after all, only what he had expected. It was even what pleased him, what rewarded him. There, outside, were the bare streets, and here, inside, was the snow. Snow growing heavier each day, muffling the world, hiding the ugly, and deadening, increasingly above all, the steps of the postman.
Paul, your father thinks you might need a new lamp upstairs for your studies.
We've been worrying, Paul. We thought maybe it was eye strain that's been bothering you.
How was one to explain? Would it be safe to explain? Would it merely mean that he would get into some obscure kind of trouble? And how could he explain his new world?
How's school going, son? History was my favorite subject.
I think I prefer geography, especially when it takes one to the North Pole.
Why the North Pole?
Well, it would be fun to be an explorer, like Perry, or Scott, or Byrd.
It was irresistible, this new world. It was miraculous. Its beauty was beyond anything, beyond speeches, beyond thought, utterly incommunicable. And with each passing day, it increased. The snow became deeper, heavier, the sound of its seething more distinct, more soothing, more persistent.
Perhaps we'll ask Paul. Paul?
Paul? If this goes on, we'll have to see a doctor. We can't have our boy living in another world. So far away.
There were times when he longed, positively ached to burst out with it, to tell everyone about it, only to be checked almost at once by a sense of mysterious power in his very secrecy. It must be kept secret. That more and more became clear, at whatever cost to himself, whatever pain to others.
Perhaps you'll come out of your daydream long enough to be able to tell us, won't you, Paul?
It is what we now call the Hudson River.
And?
He thought it was the Northwest Passage. He was disappointed.
Thank you.
the walk homeward, which was timeless, it pleased him to see through the accompaniment, or counterpoint of snow, the items of mere externality on his way. Something else now further on, which was already assuming a sharper importance. He knew what he was going to look at next. It was his own house, his own little hill street, his silent, his secret snow. This morning, could he be mistaken? It was just above the 7th house, his own house, that the postman had first been audible. The knock he had heard must have been the knock on his own door. The realization gave him abruptly, and even a little frighteningly, a sense of hurry. He was being hurried. He was being rushed. Did it mean, and this was an idea which gave him an extraordinary sense of surprise, that he would never hear the postman again? Was it all going to happen at the end so suddenly? Or indeed, had it already happened? After supper, the inquisition began.
And now take it slowly and hold it if you can.
How silly all this was. As if it had anything to do with his throat, or his heart, or lungs.
Now, Paul, I just want you to read this, as you naturally would.
And another praise have I to tell, for this the city our mother, the gift of the great God, a glory of the land most high, the might of horses, the might of the sea.
No, there's no sign of superficial eye strain at all. We could have his eyes examined, but I believe it's something else.
Even here, even among these hostile presences, the snow was waiting, out of sight, with an air that said, "Wait, Paul, just wait."
Is there anything that worries you very much?
Oh, no. I think not.
Are you quite sure?
You needn't answer at once, Paul. Remember, we're trying to help you. Think it over and be quite sure, won't you?
Wait, Paul. Just wait till we're alone together. Then I will tell you something new, something cold, something sleepy, something of cease and peace in the long, bright curve of space. Banish them, refuse to speak, leave them. Go upstairs to your room. I will be waiting for you. I will tell you a story better than the snow ghost. I will surround your bed, close the windows, pile a deep drift against the door so that none will ever again be able to enter. Speak to them.
I'm just thinking.
Thinking? But my dear, about what?
About what?
Yes, Paul, about what?
Anything.
Paul, you're making this very painful for your mother. What are you thinking about?
About the snow.
What on earth?
My dear, what do you mean?
Just snow, that's all. I like to think about it.
Tell us about it, my boy.
That's all there is. There's nothing to tell. You know what snow is.
Hurry, Paul, hurry. These last few precious hours.
Mother, can I go to bed now? Please, I have a headache. Please.
Listen to us, Paul. Listen. We have come to tell you the story we told you about. You remember? In this white darkness, we will take the place of everything.
Paul. 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 Go away. Oh, Paul. I hate you.
And with that effort, the seamless hiss advanced once more. Listen, it said. We'll tell you the last, the most beautiful and secret story. A story that gets smaller and smaller, that comes inward instead of opening like a flower. It is a flower that becomes a seed, a little coal seed. Do you hear? We are leaning closer to you.
Okay.
Woo! All right, Kayla. You have a lot to say about Silent Snow, Secret Snow. So.
Yeah. Well, this would have been a film, I mean, according to the sort of teacher's notes and stuff that come with the film, it would have been something shown to kids in like grade 7, grade 8, something like that. And it's one of these films that you were mentioning earlier, Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. You know, it's definitely in that realm. I have like a surreal, literary-based story that would have been shown to kids probably as part of like English class, you know, like as they were reading the story or whatever. And this story, I mean, as I mentioned, it was used on Night Gallery. It was played again on Night Gallery, made into a different version. But this original version was made by Gene Kearney in upstate New York, where he lived. And the boy who plays the character, his name is Simon Gerard, and he was actually the nephew of Gene Kearney. And so he was not a professional actor or anything like that. He was his nephew, and he asked him to be in the movie. And I was able to track down, by a weird coincidence, I was able to track down the mother of the kid. So Alice Gerard, there was a band on YouTube who had used footage from Silent Snow, Secret Snow as their music video. The band was called Goes Cube. And they had like mentioned somewhere in their comments, like, thanks to Alice Gerard for telling us about Simon Gerard, the kid who, you know, they had some kind of comment where I was like, wait, whoa, what? Like they have found this person. And so I contacted the band connected me to the mother. And so I sent the mother a bunch of questions about the kid. And her responses were just amazing. And she said that basically the kid really responded to the character. The kid had no acting experience, but he wanted to play that character. And part of why he was interested in playing that character was that he was a kind of weird, alienated kid. And it wasn't until I think he was a teenager that he realized that a lot of what he was going through in his own life was because he was gay. And he didn't know that, obviously, when he was a child. And he spent a long time being like from a small town and everything like this, like getting comfortable with that. He ended up experimenting with hard drugs and drinking a lot. And so his mother said that, you know, he really was often a very unhappy person in his life, and that he had, you know, found friends who cared about him and stuff, but that he always was kind of separate from things. And eventually alcohol abuse caused him to have an early death in his early 50s. And she wrote this kind of amazing thing in his obituary, like in their hometown paper. I just want to see if I can find it, but it was like, you know, she said about him so it was Palisades, New York. That's where it was filmed.
Okay.
And she said in their newsletter, she wrote, "There is a tendency to idealize those who have recently left us. Simon struggled with his own demons. At times he was difficult to live with, and at times he no longer wanted to live. I'm glad he stayed around as long as he did. Simon was never satisfied with everyday reality. He wanted to transform it, and much of the time he succeeded." And I just thought that was amazing, considering that he played this kid in Silent Snow, Secret Snow, who just wants to disappear into this world of snow and shut out the real world. And
how old do we think he was when he played this character?
He was about 13.
13, okay.
Yeah. And the other thing that's interesting is that the story was written by Conrad Aiken, and Conrad Aiken also had issues as a kid because he found his parents dead in a murder-suicide.
Oh, boy.
So when Conrad Aiken was like 11, I think, his father shot his mom and then shot himself, and he found them. And it's interesting that Conrad Aiken writes about this in his autobiography, but he switches to the third person to tell this story.
Interesting.
But then another interesting thing in the original short story of Silent Snow, Secret Snow that he does kind of stylistically is that at the beginning of the story, whenever people talk to him, like his teachers or his parents or whatever, they're just in normal quotes, just like normal conversation that you would read. And as the story goes on, everything they say starts to appear in brackets.
Interesting.
Which I thought was just beautiful, because it's just like all of a sudden everything they say is starting to become very separate background noise to them, you know, right. And that's actually represented in the way that the story is written. But yeah, so it's just like, it's a fascinating story. It's a really amazing just coincidence that the kid who plays him in this version, you know, had a lot of issues. And it's like people nowadays, at the time, I think they would use this story as an example of a kid with schizophrenia. And then in more contemporary readings, people have read him as a character with Asperger's.
Right. Right.
I don't know whether the character was actually intended to be either of those things, but that's just like how people have read it over time.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And wow, you dug up all the like literal dirt on this.
Yeah.
Well, we took a kind of depressing story and we made it even more depressing, but I appreciate that backstory. It's fascinating. It's I think that's the one thing that I can appreciate about showing these films is that because they're not part of the like a Hollywood studio system, you often involve actors and you involve people that are making the films that are normal people out in the world, and they all have these amazing stories.
Yeah.
Some of them end well, some of them not so much.
Yeah.
All right, so that leaves our last film in our depressing 3 films that we're showing. And this film...
the word snow in it. I didn't need to pick 2 movies with the word snow, but I did.
It's fine. I actually did a show in Houston, Texas called Dag It's Cold, and it was in August, and I showed all the films that I had with snow in them, and we pretended like it was cold outside, and we had hot chocolate and all that stuff. And it was brutally hot. It was outrageous. So you want to set up a little bit about Cipher?
Yeah, so this third movie is called Cipher in the Snow. And when I first saw this movie, I believe, I don't know if I heard about it from you, Skip, but I think how I first saw it was through you, because I used to have a micro cinema in Montreal called Blue Sunshine. And we played like a weekend of 60 millimeter classroom films that we booked from you, and we called it Downer Express Suicide Weekend. And so we were just like trying to get all these, like, just the whole weekend of depressing educational films. And I remember we booked from you The Day I Died and All My Tomorrows, and Cipher in the Snow was one of them. And there was another one too, but I don't remember what. And but so Cipher in the Snow was a film I had heard of, I think, from Jesse Fix in who was a programmer in San Francisco. And it is a movie that was made by, it's a Mormon film made by Brigham Young University. They have I don't know if they still do. They definitely, starting in the 50s, had a huge film department at Brigham Young.
Right.
And so they would have a lot of the people who, like a lot of other Mormons from the community that would, some who had gone to Brigham Young, who were students who transitioned into that department, and then other people that they would bring in from outside who had built professional industry careers, but who were Mormons also, and they would bring them in to like work on the films. But Cipher in the Snow is based on a short story. I don't want to really say too much about it. I kind of want to like let people discover, but it's based on a short story. It's only a 2-page long short story.
Wow.
That they managed to make into this like 20-minute devastating film. But it is like the opening shot of this movie is just like a bam, like kind of, you're like, okay, this is what we're going to watch. And so, yeah, so we can put that on, Cipher in the Snow, and then we'll come back and talk about it after.
All right. I should say that I've done call-in shows on different call-in radio stations across the U.S., and people would call in and ask about films that they saw. And in more than one case, I had people call me and ask me about this film.
Like they remembered a scene from it or something?
Oh, they remember the opening scene from it. And then the next question is, why did they show me this film? So we can talk about that. Yeah. All right, so here's Cipher in the Snow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah, I thought the other guy was
Just one time I like to beat him to school.
Sorry, just gotta get off.
What? Thought you're going to school.
What happened? I don't know. The kid tapped me
me on the shoulder, kind of apologetic-like, and asked if he could get off, so I let him.
What's the matter with him?
He's dead, isn't he? Better call an ambulance.
Who he is. He was in
This fellow works?
in the preceding jail.
Hey, somebody call an ambulance already?
Go right in, Mr. Collier. Mr. Hard's
Are you sure he was a student here?
Yes.
Hello, Frank. Neither of you knew the boy?
No. Ned, I think he was in my math class last year.
Peggy, if you have the Evans file, would you bring it in, please? Thank you, Mr. Schneider.
It's funny. The boy never even said he felt bad.
Here it is.
Oh, thanks, Peggy. Would you take care of these, please?
All right.
What time is that board meeting?
You're late for it now, sir.
Frank, I thought you said you hardly even knew the boy.
What do you mean?
Well, he's written here that you're his favorite teacher.
His favorite teacher, me?
That's what it says.
Well, there were a couple of instances when I helped him with his homework, but...
At least you remember talking with him. That's more than anybody else. Did he have a drug problem?
I don't know. I told you I didn't spend that much time with him.
I see.
Wish I could be of more help.
As a matter of fact, you can. Somebody has to contact the parents.
Oh, no, wait a minute. You're the principal. Don't you think you or Mr. Carlin...
I've got to be in a board meeting all day. Besides, I don't even remember seeing the boy. You at least knew him.
Oh, what about my classes?
We'll cover your classes. And incidentally, we'll need a small obituary for the school paper. You can use my office. Peggy will be glad to help. And from the school to attend the boy's funeral. And thank you very much, Frank. I really appreciate this. Any ideas?
Well, here's the address. 4015 Randolph Road, Mr. and Mrs. Nathan Tucker.
Stepfather?
Mm-hmm.
Cliff was a good boy.
I'm sure he was.
Never complained. Never even said he was sick.
Never said nothing about anything since the day I moved in. I give that boy everything I could, but he could just never catch on. If he wouldn't have been so dumb, he'd have told us he wasn't feeling good.
Cliff wasn't dumb.
Wasn't dumb? I'm sorry Cliff's dead. But he could never do one thing right, and you know it. Mister, I've got all this work to do around here. The other day, when we had that snow...
Beautiful shot by 22 Willamette, sir. That just made him top scorer for his team.
You shovel them walks?
I forgot.
Oh, you forgot. I tell you to go out and shovel those walks. You come in and you say, I forgot. Where you been for 2 hours?
Just went for a walk.
For 2 hours? Dummy went for a walk for 2 hours. Doing what?
Just thinking.
Oh. What's that in your hand there?
It's a willow. It's already bedding. It's not even spring yet.
A willow. I ask you to please go out and shovel the walks. And you spend 2 hours thinking about willows. When are you going to start using that head of yours for something besides keeping your ears apart? Stupid kid. And she says he wasn't dumb.
I should have spent more time with him.
So you didn't? Now let it be.
That's what you've always wanted, isn't it, Harry?
Hey, where are you going?
To see my son.
What about my breakfast?
How's it coming?
Well, Cliff Evans was Caucasian, never legally adopted by stepfather, and has a steady list of bad grades.
That's the obituary?
That's the record. As far as school goes, he appears never to have done anything. No clubs, no sports, no activities at all.
No friends or students that knew him?
None that admit it.
You're kidding.
Nope, from the record, Cliff was a real zero, a cipher.
Oh, I don't envy your job.
You know, though, there's something I just can't get out of my head. Cliff Evans appears to have started out a normal, healthy, and happy boy. Look, first grade teacher, sweet, shy child. Second grade, timid, eager, wants to learn.
He's a nice-looking boy.
There's a poem he wrote in the second grade.
My poem about frogs by Cliff Evans. I like frogs. They sit on great big logs. They jump real high up to the sky. I wish I could jump high like a frog.
Sound like he was always a zero.
No, he started out just about like every other kid, but...
Well, what happened? Messed up home?
I'm sure that was part of it, but there's got to be more. Third grade. Cliff won't talk, uncooperative, slow learner. That's about the same time Cliff's mother and father are having trouble.
Good. That's much improved. That's right, you're doing fine. Cliff, what are you daydreaming about today? Oh, you've always got your mind on something else. Cliff, you've got to try harder. You know you're the slowest one in the class. Do you want some help after school? Do you want me to have your parents in for a conference?
They won't come.
Why not?
They're getting a divorce.
People seem to live up to what other people think of them. Slow learner. The 4th grade teacher says, low achiever. Doesn't mix well with other children. I've seen how that happens.
There you go. Now man this head. Not much in it, though. Hey, what that looks like? Yeah, it does. Hi, Cliff Evans. Looks just like a... Except he isn't so ugly. Yeah. There you go, Cliff. There's your hat. Looking nice and warm.
Are all the rest of his reports like that?
It's all beginning to fit, isn't it? Once he was labeled, everybody else followed. Stubborn, daydreamer, slow learner, dull. Not one of them looked past that 3rd grade remark to find any real answers.
No wonder Cliff had a problem.
Do you have my 8th grade report?
Yes, it's right there.
Introverted, lacks ambition, socially unskilled. Well, doesn't look like I helped any more than the rest, does it, Peggy?
What do you mean?
You have a son, don't you?
Yes.
Suppose he lived in a broken home, was never legally adopted, and was totally ignored. How would he feel?
It's not a very pleasant thought.
Now add to this 6 or 7 hours a day spent in school where he gets the impression that he's slow and dumb.
Oh, Mr. Collier, I don't think teachers intend to treat students that way.
Maybe not consciously, Peggy, but I wonder.
Working pretty late. Just been looking through the Cliff Evans file. We got the coroner's report. They were really puzzled. Said there was nothing wrong that they could tell. Heart just stopped beating.
Heart failure. That's okay for the record, but there's more to it than that.
What?
I think Cliff was erased. Little by little. Family, schoolmates, teachers,
Everyone reduced him to a 0. Finally, he just went away.
Low IQ.
Right. This year it was listed as 83, way down. But in the 3rd grade, it was recorded at 106. It didn't even go under 100 until the 7th grade.
Okay, a negative environment can significantly lower an IQ over a period of time. But what's that got to do with the boy's death?
Even shy, timid children have resilience. It takes time to break them. Gradually it happened. And I helped. Me, his favorite teacher. Oh, I did the best I could to show Cliff how to solve mathematical problems. But like everyone else, and the things that really mattered, and making him feel like a worthwhile human being, I kept subtracting.
Frank, a lot of people are treated worse than Cliff, and they survive.
Some do, some don't. Do you remember that study on babies in orphanages?
Yeah.
They were given all the food and physical care they needed. The mortality rate was incredible. Well-fed babies turned their faces to the wall and died. When the doctors finally caught on, they prescribed, along with the food and blankets, a little attention, a little love. Cliff held on for a long time. Finally, he just turned his face to the wall, too. Just turned his face to the wall and died.
I see what you mean. In a way, we all share the blame. What are we going to do about it? What can...
Excuse me, are you Mr. Collier?
Yes, I am. Why?
Well, I was wondering if I could talk to you for a minute.
Look, son, I have a lot on my mind right now. Could we make it some other time?
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. What did you say your name was?
My name is Leroy Jones, and I'm going to be in your math class next spring.
Uh-huh.
And I was wondering if you could give me some help.
At that moment, I resolved never to forget Cliff Evans. He'll be my challenge from now on. Each September, as I look at the unfamiliar faces, I'll look for veiled eyes in an alien world. I've promised myself I may not do anything else for them, but not one of them is going to come out of my class a nobody, a 0.
Okay, wow. So while we were watching the movie, Kayla said, yeah, this is probably the most depressing of the 3.
Yeah, I just think it's the most depressing because the kid literally drops dead because no one registers his existence.
Right. And that's the thing is, so when I was asked, like, hey, so why did they show this film to me in the 4th grade? My answer was they shouldn't have shown it to him. Because my takeaway with this and watching a bunch of educational films, it is, you show kids something that they can do, or some behavior to model. Actionable. Something that's actionable, exactly. And there is nothing that a kid can do in this situation. I think the only scene is with the bullying with the snowman, but the rest of it is adults. It's teachers, it's the administration, it's his parents, his stepfather, All that stuff is something that adults can do. And my thought was, my God, you show this to a fourth grader who already feels like nobody loves him, and now you add this anxiety that he's
going to die.
He's going to die someday. Exactly. So what's your take on this, and why does this resonate with you?
I mean, a big part of why it resonates with me is just because I love stories about the worst possible scenario. In general, I respond to grim, depressing stories, and I think that I love the idea that you can self-obliterate, like you can just disappear like that. Like people just don't register you, they don't notice you, they forget about you, and that you just become erased, you know. Right. And they bring up that comparison in the film of like he erased himself, you know. And I think that, you know, like a lot of kids can relate to that, of just not being noticed, you know. So it's like, even when he says like, oh, my parents are getting a divorce, you know, or whatever, and nobody acknowledges it. Like, oh yeah, this might be a thing that a kid might be struggling with or whatever, you know. It's like, just no. The one thing I was saying that it's like, because the original short story is only 2 pages long, it's slightly less than 2 pages. It's really short. And it was written by a woman who was a teacher who claimed that this was based on a true story from her school. Wow. I doubt the real kid dropped dead, but you know, but it was something tragic that had happened to a kid in her school, and that she felt it was because the school had not done enough to like reach out to this kid. And you know, but the very name of the movie, Cipher in the Snow, you know, it's like the whole implication is that this kid is literally a nothing, a zero, you know. He just doesn't count. Right. And so the scene of the bullying of the other kids was a scene that was added for this movie. It's not in the original short story. And that's one of the few scenes that I feel kind of detracts from the theme of the story, because in a way it's like the other kids are noticing him, they're picking on him. And so it's you know, they are registering his existence in a way. So, I mean, I actually prefer the aspects of the story that are literally like, the kid is just going through life and no one even notices he's there. And I love the opening scene on the bus when it's just him sitting there, and it's just like a silhouette of his face. You know, the light is coming in from out the window and his head is down, and you just see like the silhouette of his face. And it's just, it's just like a beautiful portrait of alienation. And, you know, a lot of the stuff with the teachers and the secretary character is not in the short story at all. But they needed a way, obviously, for the teacher to be voicing these concerns that he has. Right. You know, and so, you know, but otherwise it follows the story pretty closely, expanding on it where it needs to fill out the running time. But also the other thing that was interesting about, in terms of just like who made this movie, you know, it's made by Mormon University, Brigham Young. And I don't know how much you know about the history of the motion picture department at Brigham Young.
I know that Wetzel Whitaker. Yeah, like he made a lot of these films over the years.
And he had been an animator at Disney.
Oh, interesting.
Before this. So he was like an animator, and he was getting paid quite a bit by Disney, but also there was another animation company. They were sort of courting him, and then he got offered in the 50s to head up a new motion picture department at Brigham Young. And so he, you know, it wasn't like his idea to start it, but he was the first director of it, you know, like in charge of that wing of the school. And so he started that whole motion picture department. And so this movie's made in like 1973. So we're already like almost 20 years after that. And it's obviously still going strong at that point. And he is still producing those films.
Wow.
And so he is the producer of this. But it was, the cinematography is by Reed Smoot. And it's like not easy to forget a name like Reed Smoot. But he is, in fact, only one of the famous Mormon people named Reed Smoot. But there's another Mormon named Smoot. But Reed Smoot was the cinematographer for The Wraith, You know, the 80s movie with Charlie Sheen.
Oh, right.
It's like a guy gets killed in a car accident and comes back as like a ghost of a car or whatever. And so he did like a few of these movies, and he did tons of like IMAX movies and stuff like that. But he was a Mormon, and he is a Mormon, and he was very focused on the film productions coming out of Brigham Young.
Right. One of the things we were talking about while we were watching the movie was that sometimes non-Mormon, or we think non-Mormon people would show up. Like I have a wedding film. It's a film about marriage, and Gordon Jump, the guy from WKRP, was in it. But then I pointed out, like, the stepdad is Bruce Kimball, who showed up in a bunch of, it was a character actor who showed up in a bunch of films. And we were looking at his IMDb page.
Yeah, and like I didn't pick up on him being in the movie, but he was in like a bunch of sort of Bob Cressy, Lee Frost productions and Al Adamson films, and the movie Snakes. I don't know if you've seen Snakes.
I have. I saw it at Alamo. Yeah.
Snakes is a very special movie. But yeah, he'd been in tons of stuff, and I was just like, wow, I didn't even register him, but I've seen so many of these movies that he's in. Tons of exploitation films.
Interesting. Somebody I'm sorry to interrupt, but somebody commented that Reed Smoot worked on some films for Pyramid Film Company, including Ballet Robotique and Rainbow War. Rainbow War is a pretty amazing film. But yeah, okay. So yeah, so there's these people who do other things.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, the Bruce Kimball, that was a surprise. I had not picked up on that. So.
Right.
But yeah, so depressing, sad movie about a child dying from neglect. It could happen to you.
Yeah. Yeah, so kids beware. Run away from home so you can find somebody that loves you. I don't know. I mean, what's the, So you were talking about like finding program notes. A lot of times the films actually come with program notes that say to the teacher, like, okay, well, here's how you encourage discussion after you show the film, or here's like things that you can do to kind of extend the reach of the film. And I have not found one for this film, so I don't really know like who it's supposed to be shown to, and where you're supposed to go from here.
Yeah, I mean, like as you were saying, it seems like something more made for teachers.
Yeah,
the teachers would get something out of, or parents more than the kids. For the kids, you would just get like dread and anxiety.
Right. Yeah, and I often refer to this as the film that has traumatized an entire generation, and because it's so outrageous, and just it just seems like, and I know that there's got to be teachers out there who are like, well, I have to show this film because this is my favorite film. It's like a driver's ed teacher saying, I'm going to have to show the highway safety gore film because this is the film that, everybody wants me to show, and it's going to teach them this lesson, whether they want it or not. It's going to shove it down their throats.
Yeah.
Well, this was really fun, Kayla. Any parting observations or things you want to promote, or other places that people can find you? And
people can just find me on my website. So I have like spectacularoptical.ca or miskatonicinstitute.com are the easiest places. But yeah, I just think people should watch more of the, help keep these films alive. Watch these films and share these films, and like give archives and programmers an excuse to show them and save them, because there's so many amazing stories behind these films that were often made for a limited time, limited usage, and people kind of forget about them, but there's a lot of really amazing stuff there.
All right, well, maybe we'll have you back the longer this goes, and maybe we'll have you pick some films that are not so friggin' depressing.
If I'm capable. Yeah.
Yes. That still kind of tickle your brains in the way the films that you like, but also, everybody, it wouldn't just be so bleak. Because these are, like I said, these are brilliant films, but I would not show these three films together except for you. So I have to give like a palate cleanser. I can't let people just sit and stew in this. So I'm going to show a ludicrous film from my collection. Kayla, thank you so much for joining us. Oops, I accidentally just switched over to it. Hold on. All right. I'm so jarred. But anyways, thanks again, Kayla, for coming out or joining me electronically. I should say that we're going to have another guest on Friday, Doug Edmonds, who appears in Ghost Rider, an amazing bus safety film that was filmed in Pennsylvania. And he gets to talk about his experiences being on a haunted bus. So as a palate cleanser, here's Malakapalakadoo Skip Two. It is ludicrous. It is an example of imagination going crazy. So enjoy this.
One shiny day, so I've heard folks say, a sister and a brother changed themselves to beanbags, changed themselves to beanbags, and went not far away. They traveled to the kingdom where imagination loves to play. Malakapalakadoo Skip Two, Malakapalakadoo Skip Two, strange things can happen there. In Malakapalakadoo Skip Two, they found all sorts of things, like a talking foot with wings.
Well, haven't you ever seen wings with a foot before?
No.
I used to belong to a postman. Walk, 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 all the time walk. Sore? I was sore all the time.
Gosh, that's a shame. Maybe if the postman had springs on his shoes, you wouldn't have gotten sore. Or if he had marshmallows under his feet. Or shoes made from clouds. Or rollers on his shoes. Yeah, with a propeller on the back to push him along. Or if the postman had shoes raised in the back, you would have been walking downhill all the time.
Good ideas, beanbags. Now I'm the postman here. And I have a letter for you. Goodbye.
What does it say? It says, "Hi there. The kind demands that you come to him, and it's signed, The Kind." What's a kind? Maybe that's like a king. Maybe. Anyway, let's find out what he wants.
Hello, beanbags.
You are a king, and not a kind. Your letter must have been misspelled.
No, it wasn't. I got tired of calling myself the Kindly King. That sounds like I'm patting myself on the back. So I shortened Kindly King to Kind. My full name is Kind Awful. The Kindly King of Malakapalakadoo, or Malakapalakadoo. How does it go, Walt?
You are Kind Awful, the kindly king of Malakapalakadoo Skip Two.
You see? My kindness is mixed up as its name. I have been waiting for 2 beanbags to fix up everything, to solve all my problems.
What is your problem?
Problem? Oh, I wish that I only had one problem. Bring in that toad. I'll show you one big problem. My mistletoe won't kiss me anymore. A mistletoe has mistletoe hanging over her head. She's supposed to kiss everybody, but she won't kiss me. Why?
How could they get the mistletoe to kiss the kind again? The kind missed the kisses of his mistletoe friend. Think and imagine, how can it end? They use their minds, and now the kind has got his kiss again.
Enough! You beanbags are really amazing. It's that direction. You beanbags are so good at solving my problems, I now appoint you as the official problem solvers of the entire kingdom of Malakapalakadoo
Malakapalakadoo Skip Two.
Now, for your first official problem, Burping Bertha. Burping Bertha! She eats bad foods all the time. She has set a bad example, so we want to ship her out of the kingdom. But in order to ship her, we have to know how much she weighs. And we don't have a bathroom scale big enough to weigh her.
So the problem is, how do you weigh Burping Bertha?
Exactly right.
But how can we weigh something this big? It certainly is an enormous problem.
To weigh Big Burping Bertha, they had to find a way. If they could not weigh her in the kingdom, she would stay. Think and imagine, what can they say? They used their minds, and now the kind can send Big Burping Bertha far away.
You beanbags are really smart problem solvers. You were able to weigh Burping Bertha. Now we can move her. Goodbye, Burping Bertha! Bye! Bye! Let's go over to Smile Hill. Once we get there, you can see for yourself the problems we have with our smiles. You see? These are the official smiles for the entire kingdom.
No fun! No fun! No smile for a while.
Now how can a kind run his kingdom without smiles? All they need is something that will give them fun for a while, so they'll smile.
Make a smile smile?
How could they get the smiles to smile when they were oh so sad? Smile Hill was filled with gloom, why were things so bad? Think and imagine, how could they make the sad smiles glad? They used their minds, and now the kind has the smiley smiles that he has ever had.
Fun, fun, fun! Smile, smile, smile! All the while smile! Ha-cha!
My kingdom is happy again. You beanbags are wonderful.
You the one who ordered a thingamajig? Here you go. Sign right here.
Hey, everybody! Our thingamajig has finally arrived. Come on, let's get it started.
What is a thingamajig?
Why, a thingamajig can be anything you want it to be, or do anything you want it to do.
A thingamajig can set you free to do what you want, be anything you want to be. A thingamajig's like a beanbag's mind, and anyone can have one, even a kind. Your thingamajig can set you free to do what you want, be anything you want to be. Your thingamajig's your imagining mind, and everybody has one, even a kind. Your imagining mind can set you free to be anything you want to be.
But don't you want to be a great kind?
Of course! Maybe. But now with my thingamajig, I can be a beanbag kind. Kind beanbag, a kindly king of Malakapalakadoo Skip Two. Thank you, little beanbags, for all your help. But now that I have my thingamajig, now that I'm a beanbag, I can handle everything myself.
Gee, that makes us happy. But if we're not needed, then we have to go. I'm glad we could help solve your problems.
Goodbye, little beanbags.
Goodbye, kind beanbag. Goodbye.
One shiny day, so I've heard folks say, a sister and a brother who turned themselves to beanbags, changed right back to children, and traveled home again. They found it was such fun to find a place to play games in their mind. In Malakapalakadoo Skip Two, Malakapalakadoo Skip Two, they found it was such fun to find a place to play games in their mind. In Malakapalakadoo Skip Two, Malakapalakadoo Skip Two,
Wow, so this is the film that drives people off on YouTube. I guess I was like shifting people's psyche transmission too much, going one way or another. And I know that some people have already seen this before and they already get it. I watch this film a lot, not just because it has the name Skip in it, but because it's fascinating. I've watched a lot of the Crocus production films, and I'll be showing some more of those in the future. And they're fascinating. Almost all of them use stop motion. The stories are very, very strange and don't always make sense. This one is just over the top. And what I say is that this film is not about drugs, but might have been influenced by drugs in the making of it. So thanks everybody for joining me and joining Kier-la Janisse, who came to us from British Columbia via the internet. Hopefully you enjoyed, quote unquote, got to actually watch the films and kind of think about them. I appreciate Kier-la because we've been working together and I've been providing her with content and she's been doing research and talking about the films in other contexts. And so I figured you guys would dig that. So if you like what you saw or you appreciate what you saw, there's avgeeks.com. You can go there and buy DVDs and see other things that we've done in the past. And also Patreon is a place you can donate for future things. So tomorrow, 1 o'clock, no depressing films. I'll try not to make them depressing. We'll be back to our normal format. And then Friday, we'll watch Ghost Rider. And Ghost Rider, we'll talk with an actor, the main actor of the film, and talk about his experiences being on a haunted school bus. Thanks again, everybody, for coming out, and I will see you again tomorrow. Take care.